Imagine waking up one morning to the thunderous growl of machinery, only to discover you're trapped within the walls of your own city. Greetings everyone. Today, we're peeling back the Iron Curtain to reveal the stark contrasts of life in East Germany. From the omnipresent eyes of the Stasi to the desperation of those fleeing oppression. We'll explore how a society thrived under surveillance, how equality was enforced, and how scarcity shaped a nation's character. And we'll uncover the moment of miscommunication that brought down one of history's most infamous barriers. If you find this video interesting, please support us by hitting the like button. Now, let's get started. Early in the morning on August 13, 1961, people woke up to the sound of heavy machinery driving around the streets. With a melancholy feeling, they opened the curtains to find that the army had dug a hole and started to build a huge wall to seal off the border. Before the wall was built, over 3.4 million people had fled the country, seeking freedom and better opportunities. This act of physically trapping people within the wall was a stark testament to the lengths the government would go to maintain control. A country that once existed, the German Democratic Republic, commonly known as East Germany. What some may not know is that until just 30 years ago, Germany was a separate country with completely different lives in the West and the East. After World War II, Germany was divided into East and West, with the West side occupied by the United States, Great Britain, and France, and the East side by the Soviet Union, the predecessor of Russia. The German Democratic Republic was created on the Soviet side. Let's start by examining the feared secret police force that operated in this country. East Germany had one of the world's leading secret police agencies, which gathered a great deal of information about its citizens through phone tapping, interrogations, and even through tips from neighbors. Modeled after the Soviet Union's KGB, the Stasi became one of the most effective and repressive intelligence and secret police agencies in the world. Over 40 years, they not only conducted extensive surveillance on East German citizens, but also compelled them to spy on one another, while deploying agents to infiltrate West Germany and other nations. This was a huge organization, with 90,000 employees at its peak in 1988. It is also said that there was one informant for every 6 people in the country. It is estimated that there was at least one in every factory, office, and apartment. The thought is unsettling, breeding mistrust that a friend, colleague, or even a sibling could be an informant. The Stasi, the secret police, was originally responsible for suppressing information about the former Nazis and spying on the West, but as time went by, they changed their style to this, gathering information about the people and then controlling them. It fostered an atmosphere of compliance, with citizens under constant surveillance by this oppressive institution. After the fall of East Germany, the reality of this surveillance was revealed. It was revealed that the secret police maintained files on approximately 1 out of every 3 East German citizens, supported by a network of over 500,000 unofficial informants. The material on citizens ranged from audio files, photographs, and millions of documents. People who spoke out against the government were arrested and tortured in the beginning. However, this was considered too overt, so the secret police's original Zersetzung of the Stasi employed a psychological technique known as Zersetzung, involving subtle harassment. Agents would enter a target's home to rearrange furniture, alter clock times, place pornography in the mailbox, or flatten bicycle tires, creating an atmosphere of fear and paranoia. This blatant form of intimidation, such as coming home to find one's furniture rearranged, was designed to disquiet and unsettle. They disrupted lives by barring individuals from career advancement, relegating them to the end of waiting lists for housing and medical care, or in extreme cases, committing them to mental hospitals. If anyone tried to challenge communist rule, they subjected them to social shaming, intimidation, and torture. They also engaged in espionage abroad, carefully monitoring visiting foreigners and sending intelligence officers to serve as maids in foreign embassies. Incidentally, Putin's identity papers were discovered in 2018, when he worked for the secret police. Vladimir Putin, who is fluent in German, has a well-documented history with the Soviet KGB. During his time in East Germany, he was issued an identity card that facilitated collaboration with the Stasi on various KGB operations. In the socialist state of East Germany, full-time employment for mothers was not just encouraged, but was often expected as a societal norm. There were programs to collect breast milk and other programs to make it easier for them to work. Amazingly, 4 years after World War II, in 1949, they already recognized women's right to work and equal pay. For reference, in 1989, 89% of women were working in East Germany, compared to 56% in Western-influenced West Germany. In East Germany, women who did not work were called parasites. It is interesting to see the difference in thinking at the time. Also, life revolved around work. The company had singing and sports clubs, childcare and healthcare. Working was directly connected to the necessities of life. Companionship, and entertainment. Collective thinking was encouraged in kindergartens, to the exclusion of individualism, as all children were to be productive workers in a society based on Marxism-Leninism. Incidentally, parents were not required to pay for their children's meals, and children were fed free of charge. After that, all children were enrolled in a 10-year technical school as compulsory education. They learned to read, write, and do mathematics, and from grades 7 through 10. They took courses in drafting, socialist production, and production labor. There was also practical training to actually work in nearby factories. One ubiquitous aspect of East German life was the inevitable waiting in lines. You have to wait in line in front of department stores, restaurants, record stores, and everywhere else. Also, there's basically not enough stuff. When you go to the grocery store, fresh vegetables are hard to find, except for white and red cabbage. The hardest thing to find is fresh fruit. If your favorite fruit is apples, you are in luck. Apples are always available. Fruits that are not grown in the GDR, such as bananas, pineapples, melons, and berries, were almost impossible to find. Bananas in particular were very popular and were considered a treat. Coffee was also chronically hard to find. Even after the Berlin Wall was built in 1961, Western coffee was sometimes imported as contraband. Things were quite limited like this. But there was actually a store where you could buy Western stuff. The store was known as Intershop. Cigarettes, coffee, chocolate, records, cosmetics, and other attractive Western pastimes were lined up. Originally, they were for Western tourists who came to this country and operated to earn the foreign currency they brought with them. And they could not be paid with East German money. If you could get your relatives living in the West to send you foreign currency, you could shop at this Intershop. In 1961, just 2 days after the Berlin Wall was erected, a 19-year-old border guard named Konrad Schumann jumped over the barbed wire wall. Photographers watching the Great Escape from East Germany to the West captured the historic moment. There is also an even stronger man in 1963. An East German soldier, Wolfgang Engels. He stole a tank and smashed it against a wall in an attempt to break through it. "I'm going west. Who wants to come with me?" he shouted. But he could not break through the wall. So he got out of the tank and started to climb up the wall. He became entangled in barbed wire and was shot at by the guards. But, in a stroke of fortune, West Germans on the other side of the wall rushed to his aid, enabling his escape. In addition to this, people had various other plans to escape from East Germany, such as digging tunnels and escaping in groups, floating air mattresses on the river and escaping on them, and so on. Of course, all of this was risky and not everyone succeeded. 140 people lost their lives between 1961 and 1989. It was always said that the Berlin Wall would continue to exist for a long time to come. But in 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. In fact, did you know that the fall of the wall was caused by one man's misunderstanding? On this day, November 9, 1989, East German Press Secretary Gunter Schabowski announced that East Germans could now freely to West Germany. When the press asked him when that system would begin, he replied, "Immediately and without delay." Actually, he made this announcement without knowing much about the details. which was not at all what the government had in mind. To begin with, the policy was supposed to be announced the next day. And there were still various restrictions in place, such as still requiring East Germans to apply for visas. But immediately after this press conference, the media incorrectly reported that the borders were open. That is what drove thousands of East Germans to the Berlin Wall. At a Berlin Wall checkpoint, Harald Jaeger, a border guard, was facing a flood of East Germans. He had been told beforehand by his superiors over the phone to turn away anyone who did not have a permit, among other things. However, the crowd continued to grow, and he was afraid that it would turn into a general stampede. So he gave a historic order to his men on his own authority. "Open the gate." His men were stunned. He reiterated the command, "Open the gate." And so Harald Jaeger was later called the man who liberated the Berlin Wall. Former German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who grew up in East Germany, once reflected, in an interview. Merkel reflected, "I still tend to buy things as soon as I see them, even if they're not necessary. It's a deep-seated habit from times of scarcity. To get what you can, when you can." Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content. Take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye.